Yes, 2 times more likely to be on antidepressants than men. Men are 4 times more likely to kill themselves.
Why do you think that we're more likely to be on antidepressants?
Capitalism, the way the world is, the economy. I'll tell you right now, the economy controls the mood of the country. The mood of the country sucks because of the economy. Capitalism is the actual enemy here, not feminism. Feminism was just a human rights movement like the civil rights movement. Black people should have equal rights. What's the difference between a woman and a black person? It's just a matter of, no, you want equal rights as a human because you should have them. I should have them too, right? It was just a human rights movement. It was focused on the gender, and then we focused on the race, and we all came up. I don't know why everyone can't come up together.
I'm sure you get asked this a lot, but is there something, a message that you always want other women to hear out there?
Yes, and it's pretty direct. Don't think of yourself as a woman competing with men. Think of yourself as a human competing with humans, because that's what you are. You're as entitled to any job anywhere as anyone. You know, I remember, because I was one of the few first women doing sports television, I didn't think about it that way. I said, I'm going in there, I'm gonna compete really hard with everyone in the room. I don't care who they are, and I don't care what they think of me. I don't care. That's my choice. I've made that choice. It's a decision. It's in my control. It's in my mind. And that's the way I'm going to approach it. And I just always did.
Good advice. Michele says she won't actually be on the sidelines this season because of COVID-19, but will instead do other reporting from the first row of the stands in an area they're calling the Moat. Chris, Michele Tafoya, so good.
It's the Roman circus. What does the emperor do when the people become restive, and when the people are asking questions, and when the people don't like the policies of the emperor? He sends them to the circus. He creates a circus. He builds a giant coliseum. And he begins to throw the Christians to the lions. And he has great chariot races and football games and basketball games, all to keep the idiots preoccupied with things that don't mean anything in the scheme of the entire world, so that they don't have the time to learn what the truth is, so they don't ever get smart enough to learn how they're being manipulated, so they don't ever question the emperor. 150 of the most powerful men and women in the world can meet in secret in Baden-Baden, Germany, and plot the fate of billions, and nobody even cares about it. But 6 football players go to lunch together, and it's in the headlines across the country. You have a reflection of the society in which that exists.
Like, my thought is everything has a price. There is not a number that can get you back in that ring. 80 million, 100 million.
Nah, because now you selling your soul.
$100 million, you can have my soul.
That's you. Now we know your character. Sometimes, you know, you look at people and you be like, dang, man, you ain't got no dignity. You ain't got no morals. Like, come on, man. Like, what you gonna stand for if everything is about money? Like, I never was in a sport because of money.
Can I suggest one thing? I don't want to interfere with your cello playing, but can I suggest you get through the chord very quickly and then go right to the end, because this is too comfortable. It's an E minor chord, it's a dark chord. And then the next one is even more dark. It's the last 6 inches of the bow. Try that. Yeah, can I say, get through the chord by there. And then spare the bow, and then as you get to the point, make a crescendo. Music is almost always built in 3s, or very often. 1, 2, and then 3. And it's either I, you, we, or 1, 2, 3. This is definitely 1, 2, 3, isn't it? The first chord, the second chord, and now toy. The third is the most, right? It was a much better beginning. Can you do because it's actually only an 8th note. You're playing a long note there. And then the rest is full. If you do ta-da, the rest doesn't have any meaning. But that was great. Doing more. Oh, pull. And as you pull, you're pulling on their heartstrings. Can you do that?
You are living in the most dangerous time in American history.
We won't take a single back step.
Former professional basketball player is now the Republican Party's choice.
Can you imagine Royce White, the U.S. Senate?
White won the endorsement on May 18th with 67% of the vote.
There's nothing that guarantees we win, but I guarantee you if we lose, we will die. And Super Bowl weekend is on the horizon. Sunday, Super Bowl weekend. I must be losing my American mind because I'm not even sure who's playing in the Super Bowl this weekend. So much has been going on politically, and I'm not ashamed to say that. I'm not ashamed to say that. Before we even get into, and I hope you enjoyed the cold open there. And it couldn't be more timely. What's going on in our country? Me running for United States Senate. The entering of NFL, longtime NFL sideline reporter Michele Tafoya. And again, a referendum on American professional sports and the entire controversy with Bad Bunny. I gave you a little taste of the flip side of the coin where current pound-for-pound best Terrence Crawford out of Omaha, Nebraska, who's truly one of the all-time great boxers. I just have I'm a huge fan of him. A huge fan of his boxing and his career, and it warmed my heart to say that. It warmed my heart to come across that soundbite from a recent interview with the Pivot Podcast, whose, let's say, lead host, Ryan Clark, is certainly of the woke left variety. It warmed my heart for Bud Crawford. I don't know his politics. I don't know what he believes and what he doesn't believe, but I can tell that he's a man of character just by what he said there. And there's an example of a gladiator, an American professional athlete who represents more of what this country needs. And before we get started on Bad Bunny and the Super Bowl and the entire NFL dynamic, professional sports, this global corporate community, this watering hole for the global corporate community and professional sports, American professional sports, I want to first say this. I'm a lifelong athlete. I'm still an athlete. I'm still playing professional basketball. I'm still going to compete in mixed martial arts and professionally. And I'm a damn good one at that. But I love the game and I love sports. And I think, I really do believe football is a great game. Football is a great game. My episode tonight is not a full condemnation of the game of football or even professional sports for that matter. No, not at all. In fact, what makes professional sports so good, so gripping, what makes professional sports so revered is something that we need more broadly in American culture. The traits, the work ethic, the detail, the skill, the psychological aspect, the strategy that has made American sports exceptional. Not only for us as viewers, but on the world stage in comparison to all other sports. There's a reason why the Super Bowl is the #1 entertainment event in the entire world every single year. And we're proud as Americans that an American-born, American-grown, American-led sports and entertainment event is the #1 sports and entertainment event in the entire world every year. We're damn proud of that as Americans, and we should be. And there's a lot to be said for football in its beauty, but more so its grit. More so its grit. And we need more grit in our culture. We need more grit in our country. We need more people like Vince Lombardi and John Madden and, you know, some of these great all-time coaches like Bill Belichick. And we have a real paradox in American culture in that we've substituted sports for our religion. And by and large, that's not an opinion. That's not conjecture. That's a statistical fact. If you look at the rise of the NFL and professional sports, but specifically the NFL on Sunday, church attendance has had a steady increase, and the two coincide each other almost perfectly. So it's a matter of fact that the decline of church attendance and thus what you could call Orthodox Christianity. I don't mean Eastern Orthodox Christianity. I mean faith church attending Christianity, faith-based church attending Christianity has declined with the uptick of professional sports and specifically the NFL. So we've traded our sports for religion, or we traded our religion for sports. And there's a lot to be said for sports. We need more coaches. We need more real in our society. And the thing that I take away from sports that's most useful or most applicable to American life or even not even just American life, just life as a whole, is you have to deal with the reality in sports. You can fake it if you want. You can create your own reality if you want. You can live by your own truth if you want, but you certainly won't win. You won't be successful, or you'll only be successful to a degree, and only by anomaly, only by some strange anomaly are people who lie to themselves as athletes or as teams, as sports organizations, successful. Only by some strange anomaly do they end up beating a team that is real. And when I say real, I mean they're realistic about the facts of the game. Only very rarely, and usually when that happens, in those anomalous situations where a team that's more talented beats a team that's better prepared, the talent gap is so big that it didn't matter. That is even though that does happen, very few and far between, very rare that somebody who is more talented beats somebody who works harder and is better prepared. Now, sports is the one domain where you find that, where you can find, an athlete like LeBron James, for example, good or bad example, whether you like LeBron James or not, you can't deny he's an incredible athlete, one of the best athletes in human history. An athlete like LeBron James is going to beat the 11th and 12th guy on the bench and on an NBA roster, no matter what the situation is. The talent gap is just too big. But when the talent gap is even relatively close, the people who work hard, the team that works harder, the team that's better prepared, and even more importantly, maybe the team that has more resolve and grit is the team that comes out victorious. So we have this strange paradox in American culture where we revere sports, we've turned sports into a religion. We've made sports a simulation of human tribalism, but we don't really apply the things that make sports teams great or athletes great or sports entertaining to our life, to our culture. We don't have the same culture as we do the things that we revere about sports. Look at our schools, for example. Schooling is a great case study. We reward mediocrity. We are increasingly trying to find ways to justify failure and mediocrity in our education, but we expect exceptionalism and excellence in our sports. And then we tell these young people to be student athletes. We expect them to be student athletes, great student athletes, and you should be. I'm saying that you should be. What I'm saying is that the fundamental educational ideology no longer expects our students to be exceptional, to be excellent. And you can argue that the entire inception of our education system as a whole was set up improperly. And it was. It was set up to create workers. It was set up to create good factory workers. We all know. And not even just factory, but good workers. And there was a heresy in that. There was a sin in that. There was a sin in the inception of the American educational system. There's no doubt about it. But along the way, people tried to modify the framework as best they could of the American educational system to something that more encompasses the true nature of the human spirit and our yearning for the truth and our yearning for freedom. Somewhere along the line, we abnegated that. Somewhere along the line, we gave up and we gave over. Just like I said the other night, a lot of this is us giving up and giving over. Giving up and giving over to the wickedness. And oftentimes the wickedness disguises itself as what's easy and convenient. The best way for wickedness to creep into an individual, into a community, into a government, into an entire society, into human civilization, the best way for wickedness to sneak in is to make itself convenient, to make it almost too good to turn down. But see, that's not what American sports and American exceptionalism is about. Rarely does the guy who just happens to wake up, step out of the bed, get up out of the bed in the morning, and he's all world talented. Rarely at the highest level of competition does he beat the person who is more prepared and works harder and has a better resolve. Now you get an all-world athlete who works hard and is well prepared and has a great resolve, and you have a champion. Muhammad Ali is a great example of a guy who was crazy talented. When he got up out of bed in the morning, he was just crazy talented, not only in boxing, but the way that he thought. Crazy talented. But he also worked hard. He also was well prepared. He was a student of boxing. He was a student of his craft. He was a perfectionist of his craft. And he also had an incredible resolve, not only that great chin and toughness that he displayed there in Kinshasa, Zaire against George Foreman, the legendary Rumble in the Jungle. Not only that, but he had a great chin for his entire career. Never knocked out. Knocked down, got back up, finished the fight. Never finished, never knocked out. That is not our culture. Now, I want to talk about this NFL, but I said that all to say, again, watch the NFL this Sunday. Enjoy the Super Bowl. These players, they sacrifice so much. Everybody who's involved, the coaches, the trainers, the medical staff, all these people that are involved in the NFL, for the most part, this is their job. This is their job. Their job is to bring you the highest level of competition on this one day so that people can be entertained. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with entertainment. Some of these young men have sacrificed their life and their body to be able to play this game at the highest level and entertain you. And they will pay a price. They will pay a price at the end. Now, some would say, well, it's a fair trade-off. They're making millions of dollars to play this game. If they're crippled and have their life shortened, so what? Well, okay. But life is precious, and time on this earth can't be bought or paid for. Time is the most valuable thing that you have. Your faith is really the most valuable thing that you have. But next to your faith, time is the most valuable thing that you have, not money. And these athletes are actively shortening their lifespan by statistical measure. They are shortening their lifespan by bringing you this incredible game, this incredible competition. So appreciate it. No problem. I don't have a problem with that. I appreciate it, even though I'm probably not going to watch the game. I may watch it. I don't know. Depends on. Actually, I think I'm going to St. Louis this weekend, and I'm supposed to do an interview with Andy Frisella down there in St. Louis. So that's I'll be traveling on Sunday, but I may tune into the game a little bit. I don't even know who's playing because so much is happening politically, and I'm not a huge football fan anymore. So I'm a Minnesota Vikings fan, so, we've had a rough go of it, especially this year, but in general. And when the Vikings aren't good, I typically don't even watch. I'm a homegrown hometown guy that way. If our team isn't doing well, I don't really even care at that point. I'm not one of those guys who's like, well, the Minnesota Vikings are my team, but in their absence, I'll cheer for this team. I get no. If the Vikings aren't in it, I don't really care. I'm not watching. Not the same for the NBA because that's my sport. And I did used to play football. I played quarterback. I played football as pee-wee up until high school, and then my grandfather told me, and thank him for that. Even though we disagree politically, he said, "Hey, you're gonna eventually run into some problems here where injury may be a factor and prohibit you from your basketball career." And I don't know if that would have happened or not, but certainly I ended up excelling in basketball and making it pretty far. So he had a good intuition about that. And now there are some athletes who play basketball and football in high school, and they do just fine. But that was the choice that we made. Love football. Love football. I still love football. I love the game, but even more, I love the coaching. I love the culture of football. I'd have made for a great football player. I'm 6'8", 270 pounds. I would have probably been an exceptional tight end. I may have even ended up being better tight end by career, accomplishments or accolades than a basketball player. Who knows what would happen? Who knows? I mean, who knows? But I don't really follow football unless the Vikings are doing well. I understand the game. I understand the game at a fundamental level. And I may watch the Super Bowl. I may not. Watch the Super Bowl. Don't feel ashamed about watching the Super Bowl. Feel ashamed if you wake up on Monday morning and you still have a euphoria of distraction. Then you should feel bad. Then you should be ashamed. And that's where we're going to talk. That's going to be the what we get into here. And this may be one of my most controversial, but I hope compelling episodes yet. Again, we know we're being distracted. We know that professional sports is intended to distract us. And that's okay, because each one of us in our lives chooses what distractions we give our time and energy to. None of us are ascetic, sort of priestly monks. None of us, for the most part, certainly I'm not, spend our time in the contemplative isolation of prayer or meditation. So we pick and choose what distractions we participate in. In some ways, it's professional sports. In some ways, and this is sad, it's political participation or civic duty. And that's a problem. That's an even bigger problem, that our politics have become more like sports than sports, and our sports is substitute, our politics have become more like sports than sports, and our sports were a substitute for religion. That is the trajectory of a society in sharp decline. Sports is intended to distract us. Professional sports is intended to distract us. That's why it's a 365-day-a-year enterprise that spans over several different sports, several different types of sports on several different levels. I mean, if you look at the sports, and we should just call it the sports industrial complex, it really is at this stage, but I've said this before. You have to understand the three industrial complexes, the three main industrial complexes of American society and our global society: military industrial complex, medical industrial complex, media industrial complex. Say it again. Three industrial complexes of our society here in America, globally: media industrial complex, medical industrial complex, military industrial complex. Underneath it, you have the banking system, the working capital, the cash that flows to help the whole thing go. And now on top, The crowning jewel will be an eye in the sky. The web, the cloud, powered by artificial intelligence. That is the pyramid or the sort of structure of modern day society. An eye in the sky with 3 industrial complexes funded by, anchored by banking. There is a sports industrial complex within the media industrial complex. Sports is a rung of the media industrial complex, along with education. The food you eat. The food you eat is a rung of the medical industrial complex. The police are a rung of the military industrial complex. But they're all working together. They're separate but the same. They have the same interest. And that's what I want to talk about here this evening. Again, I say it's meant to distract us, but even more importantly, it's meant to control the narrative. It's because it can distract us, but it can only distract us to a point. Then it has to get really sophisticated. It has to get really technical in controlling the narrative. Colin Kaepernick. What an interesting story. And recently, I had somebody online criticize me saying that I supported Colin Kaepernick, and because I supported Colin Kaepernick, there's no way that person could support me. Fox News strikes again. If you don't understand that some of these people over on the left have the right diagnosis of the problem, but they have a completely warped and wrong diagnosis of the solution, then you're not really in the game of politics yet. And I'm 34 years old. Part of the reason why I started so early is because I could see from the conversation, from the quality of the dialogue in American political culture, I could see that there may be some time still before the American people have finally said enough is enough. And therefore, maybe I am unelectable, but not an indictment of me, not as an indictment of me. Me being unelectable because I'm too honest isn't an indictment of me. It's an indictment of us as a culture. It's an indictment of our populace. It's an indictment of our intellectual capacity and our demand for greatness. Hence, the hat, Make America Great Again. Make Minnesota great again. Colin Kaepernick. An example of a young man who had an intuition about something that he wasn't yet ready to fully articulate. As I said to Jason Whitlock there in the video in the cold open. Sometimes people have an intuition towards things that they're not yet ready to fully articulate. And that was Colin Kaepernick. Colin Kaepernick had an intuition about the grotesque dishonesty of corporate America, of the special interests and lobbies that play in the domain of professional sports, of entertainment, that also translates to policy, and most importantly, the way the money works. He had that intuition. Now, the momentum of propaganda and social engineering around him at the time controlled the narrative and steered him even in a certain direction politically. He wasn't mature or wise enough to see, to understand, to feel that momentum, to reject that momentum, to challenge that momentum. He himself as an individual fell victim to the wickedness of what is convenient and easy. It's not controversial to say that America or Western society is white. That's not dangerous. It's not controversial or dangerous to say that football players are the modern day slaves. It's not controversial or dangerous to join on to any one of these left-leaning political ideologies, political identity politic groups. It's no longer controversial or dangerous. So you can't count yourself a freedom-fighting, self-sacrificing, frontline revolutionary if you're on the side with all the corporate momentum. He didn't understand that. And that's where he went wrong. And that's where his idea of a solution went wrong. But let me talk about where he was right. Where he was right in that whole saga was to say that the NFL and most professional sports leagues are pay-to-play, chameleonic political organizations. What does that mean? It's a question we often ask, or I often ask on the show, or any show that I do. A real question that American citizens have to wrestle with is who's in on it and who's ignorant to it. And it's okay to wrestle with that question, but you can only wrestle with it for a moment because the net result ends up being the same, whether you're dumb to it or you're in on it. Whether you're ignorant to it or you're in on it, whether you're dumb or you're diabolical, the net result ends up being the same because those two groups of people end up on one side of the deal. The NFL is a chameleonic political organization. They will go wherever the wind blows. They will do what they think is best for the public perception. And in that way, our politics has become almost a mirror image of professional sports, a spitting image of the superficiality in American sports and entertainment. People will do what they think is in the best interest of the public perception. Again, heresy of democracy, that all majorities are made equal and righteous. So if we get a majority consensus on a thing, that automatically makes it right. Or let's say it makes it justified. Maybe we don't really care so much if it's right or wrong as whether or not it's justified and we can continue on conveniently. That's the heresy of democracy. It's one we have to be hyper vigilant toward in this country, all around the world, but in this country, especially right now in this hour. We have to be hyper vigilant toward the heresy of democracy that says all majorities are made equal and righteous. You end up with mob rule. You end up with mob influence. And Colin Kaepernick fell victim to that mob influence. He wasn't strong enough. He wasn't wise enough. He wasn't, intellectual enough or nuanced enough to be able to diagnose the problem from a broader level and speak a truth to power that actually transcends the polarity of American politics. He wasn't able to do that, but I can. I can, and I'm going to do it right here. The NFL is a chameleonic political organization. They will do what's in their best interest, and what they think their best interest is whatever keeps the lights on and the cash churning. More sinister still, whatever keeps them in a position as the number one distraction from the real problems in our society. And that's why today you find yourself out there in the audience, if you're, part of this MAGA movement or America First movement, you find yourself just as angry, discontent, distrusting of the NFL as a brand as Colin Kaepernick. Just from a different vantage, just from a different perspective. The problem is the same. The solutions are different. Colin Kaepernick was basically saying this entire military ceremony at the beginning of these NFL games is fake. It's fraudulent. It doesn't represent what it purports to represent. It doesn't represent what it's trying to say it represents, but more importantly, it doesn't represent what we, in that case, he was talking for himself and others who may think like him, what we think is American. Now, us on the other end of things would say, well, your theory of what America is supposed to be is wrong to begin with. So it discredits you from the outset. And that's a perfectly reasonable thing to say and to conclude. That Colin Kaepernick's theory of what America is fundamentally is wrong. So it's then not legitimate for him to make the critique. But that's not the whole truth. The whole truth is He can be right in his diagnosis that the NFL is fake while still being wrong about how he thinks we should solve it. You understand? Does everybody get what I'm saying? He was right in his diagnosis of the problem. The NFL is fake. And the entire military ceremony that they do at the beginning of the games is not to uphold the fabric of this country, the fundamental fabric of this country and the value of citizenship. In fact, the entire thing is to distract people while they lose the value of their citizenship. The answer isn't Marxism. The answer isn't collectivism or egalitarianism. The answer isn't communism. The answer isn't, a bigger federal government. The answer isn't corporate-led social identity politics or civil uprising. Corporate-led civil uprising. I mean, imagine when you look at the information that's coming out about the No Kings protest with George Soros and the Ford Foundation and all of these ultra-wealthy multinational tycoons. Are they, Gil Scott Heron used to say that the revolution won't be televised. And you may not agree with his political vantage, but I guarantee you this, what he said was 1,000% correct. The revolution will not be televised. If the revolution is being televised, you can almost guarantee it's nothing more than theater. That's what Gil Scott Heron was really getting at. And I don't mean to infer for Gil Scott Heron what he meant in the song, but that's what I take from it. And what I take from Colin Kaepernick is one and the same, almost to an effect. He was saying the NFL is fake. This military ceremony that they do in the NFL isn't even about their support of the military or their honoring of the military. Let me tell you why the NFL decided to hitch its wagon to the American military. And this is where the social engineering and the control of the narrative gets deep. And I need you to be able to go to that place if we have any shot of saving this country. And I mean any fucking shot. Any chance of saving this country will demand that citizens can go to that deep end of the pool intellectually and see how they've been deceived. The NFL signed on and hitched its wagon to this military ceremony, not out of loyalty to our country, not out of fealty to our country, not out of support of the troops or honoring of our fallen soldiers. They hitched their wagon to the military because the conservatives of middle white America, or let's say the Bible Belt that make up such a big piece of the NFL's consumer base, are comfortable if trading their religious practice for Sunday football comes with a little dose of American military prowess. Yeah, they did it for you. They did it for you. They did it to make you okay with not going to church on Sunday. Yes, understand. You see the thread there? I hope you can see it. I hope you can see it. The way to paper over, the way to smooth over that a predominantly Protestant, Christian, middle America, which makes up a huge base of the NFL's consumers, a huge portion of NFL fans, the way to smooth that over, the conflict of NFL of NFL football on Sundays, the conflict with NFL football on Sundays and the church, is to hit you with a dose of something else that you identify with, which for a long time on the right in America has been our love and support of the military. And people aren't going to like that. People in this audience aren't going to like that. And like I told the interviewer from PBS Frontline, you can disagree all you want, but look at the results. The results of the thing is NFL football has never been more popular, never more watched on television, and the attendance of church on Sundays, the attendance at church on Sundays has never been lower in this country's history. NFL viewership has never been higher. Church attendance has never been lower. Big piece of that NFL consumer base is in middle white America, the Bible Belt. The military ceremony is for you. It's for you to justify why you are watching the football game instead of at the church. And oh, what a thing to do. What a thing to say and what a thing to do. What a thing to do to fly F-16s, and they're going to do it on Sunday. Sure as the sun will rise. Sure as the sun will rise, sure as the turning of the earth. They will fly those F-16s over the stadium on Sunday as a tradition. When a global corporate giant like the NFL, with every economic interest you could think of represented on a single night of competition, flies over your head, flies over the stadium as tradition, the very symbol of the system and the politics stealing your fucking money from you, we should be embarrassed. We should be embarrassed. They fly those F-16s over your head and the crowd goes wild. It's a symbol of them stealing your fucking money. Oh, well, it's American ingenuity. Oh, it's American exceptionalism. Oh, the American military might. Oh, we're the baddest on the planet. You're only the baddest on the planet in your own mind, number one. You're the baddest on the planet in your own mind, and you continue to pay while the sleeping giant there in Beijing closes the gap day by day. Your elites get rich. Your multinational corporate elites get rich while our national mortal enemy closes the gap on our exceptionalism. And they fly these F-16s over your head to justify why everybody is watching football more than they're going to church. The Pentagon loses $2 trillion, just loses it. Everybody's upset about the Somali fraud here in Minnesota, and I get it. When $20 billion goes missing, that's foreign policy. That's not a mistake. That's not an accident. That's foreign policy. And we're right to be upset here in the state of Minnesota. And it should be enough that Democrats don't vote Democrat in this upcoming 2026 election. It should be enough. But we're living in such polarized times. Some people obviously like being ripped off. Some people obviously like having their money stolen from them, or at least they don't care, or they don't care as much as they do about some other issue like racism or the right to choose. But while we criticize the left on that point, who are we? Who are we? We are the folks, we are the American patriots. We are the blue-blooded American patriots that love this country, that honor our flag, honor the nation, and we stand there and applaud when these F-16s are flown over our head as a smack right in the face to every working-class American citizen in this country. It's a slap in the face. It's like signing bombs. It's of the same thought. I mean, we have a real schism here of morality and ethics when it comes to military. You know, our morals and ethics get scrambled when we talk about war. And I get it, because war is a complicated moral proposition. It really is. Just like having to kill somebody in your everyday life. Somebody breaks into your home. You don't want to have to kill somebody, but if you have to, you have to. Well, a nation plays that game at a much bigger scale. A country plays that game at a much larger scale. I understand. There are no easy answers. There are no easy answers when it comes to the use of our military or the use of military force. But we have a moral crisis in our thought process about the military. And you may be sitting there wondering, well, what does that have to do with Colin Kaepernick? Well, you know, Colin Kaepernick, all intents and purposes, made this point. He said this point. He used it for a different political agenda. But let's go back to the point. Okay, Colin Kaepernick is wrong, and we could see ex post facto that his alignment with the woke LGBTQ corporate community that's going to bring you Bad Bunny in a dress on Sunday. Sure as the sun will rise, he'll be wearing a dress because now it's some political statement of liberty and freedom. Really, it's just indoctrination at a global scale. Colin Kaepernick chose the wrong path. But he started off at the right point. And we can't lose sight of the point. We can't let Colin Kaepernick's wrong turn become the distraction from the point. And we do that as well. We allow people's failures to become the distraction from the main point. The main point is that the NFL is a representation of a global corporate community that does a bidding not in the interest of American citizens, but even more so, not in the interest of free people and citizens anywhere. It is the greatest spectacle of the globalist agenda. The difference is because American football is explicitly American, organizationally, as a brand, as a company, because it is American explicitly, because American football is so unique to our country, they get to come to the game. They get to come to the spectacle with a different advantage. They get to define, they get to control the narrative from an Americana corner, from an Americana street corner. And so what the statements that are made about our country, about this nation on Sunday are hugely consequential. Hugely consequential, more consequential than people give credit. But well before Sunday, they've already misused and abused their role in that narrative, their role in that conversation, their role in the representation of this country and our flag. So instead of cheering when the F-16s fly over this Sunday, we should all hang our nose. We should all hang our nose and realize that flying those F-16s over the greatest sports and entertainment spectacle of the year is a slap in the face of the American working class, because they steal your money and then they tell you to pay interest. They steal your money and they tell you you have to pay back the stolen money with interest. Imagine somebody comes into your house, goes into your purse or your wallet, takes out all of the cash, comes back a day later and tells you, you have to pay back the money that I stole with interest. That's what the military-industrial complex has done. That's what the central bank has done. We're stealing from you. You're going to pay back with interest. We're stealing from you on your own behalf. You're going to pay back with interest. When you see those F-16s flown over your head, that's what it's a symbol of. You can lie to yourself all you want and in a little childlike manner. This little kid used to take an airplane, and there's this great American motif that's depicted in movies and television shows and whatever the case may be. There's a great motif. It's Andy, and he's got the Buzz Lightyear, but that was just a motif of the all-American kid in a blue collar neighborhood that goes to the park, and for a split moment, he could take a toy plane and he could fly that toy plane and run through the park and fly that toy plane, and you can almost see that the wonder in his eyes makes you think he believes that he's soaring through the air. He actually believes that he's taken flight, and it's supposed to be an inspiration of this country and our young people who the wonder of their childlike imagination can grow, can be fostered into the greatness of this country. But what does it become? We're going to fly fighter jets over your head that we paid for with money we stole from you, and you motherfuckers are going to applaud. You're so weak. You're so dependent on our security. You're so dependent on the false sense of security. You have given up your freedom and you have given up your standards for us as a government, as a global corporate community. As long as we can provide this football game, this sports and entertainment, as long as we can provide this spectacle to distract you, we can fly the very thing we stole from you over your head, and you'll still applaud. Okay, maybe that's too deep. Maybe that's too deep for everybody. Maybe that's fine. Yeah, I'm just a dumb Negro from Rondo, St. Paul. I'm just a dumb Negro from St. Paul. So maybe that's a little too intellectual. But is it really? I mean, it's not Newtonian physics. Okay, it's not even Peterson level, Jordan Peterson level philosophy or psychology. It's not really that complex. Even that's a thing we do. We make it seem like something's, so deep we can't really connect with it. I don't buy it. I don't think that people don't want to connect with it or can't connect with it. I'm sorry, I should say. I don't think people can't connect with it. I think people make a conscious decision not to. Because again, the distraction is so good. The high is too good. The high has become so good in modern civilization, we will let our government and our leaders rape us. And then we pick little moments. This is what it means to be a snowflake. When people say you're being a snowflake, like Billie Eilish, for example, is, it's stolen land. Now she's got the Native American tribe taking court action against her, I believe, if the reports are true. Now, the Native American tribe that has ancestral claim to the land that her house is on is taking legal action against her about the claim. More power to them. I mean, whatever. I don't really care. It's ridiculous. It's not your land. It was conquered. And a conquered land has the right to have laws. And if those laws are, we're not going to let people just come to and from our country whenever they choose, there's nothing racist about that. There certainly isn't anything anti-indigenous about it. So we're going to let, we stole the land from first of all, not we. So I'm black. So we were brought to this country. Or if you say we were slaves in this country too. So I don't want to hear, Native Americans giving me some sob story about them having their land conquered. Same thing in Africa. Same all around the world. You lost a war. Okay. It is what it is. If your balls are big enough, come back and fight a war. And they could argue, they could make the claim that the impulse of the civil uprising and the political revolution against President Trump and the MAGA movement or the American government is them exercising their desire to fight back and retake this land. Okay. But you have to be willing to die in that scenario as well. And that's what I think needs to be pointed out here is, that's what snowflaking really is. It's like, you can act like you're some freedom fighting revolutionary. The point of the matter is most of you aren't ready to die. We know that because if you were really ready to die, you wouldn't be out in the streets with some theatrical sign and a theatrical bunch. They are a very theatrical group of people. Yeah, theater never really is a catalyst to revolution, to real change. Again, theater itself, just like football and even politics, is a way to smooth over the corruption and propel the thing forward, to it's the way the system comes together to perpetuate itself, to protect itself, to preserve itself, and to move itself forward. Some theaters better than others. Some theaters better than others. The theater that you see curated by Fox News and CNN, better than the theater you see there in the street. There's a sophisticated theater for you. The opposition and controlled opposition of CNN and Fox News. There's a sophisticated theater. It's like, what is a Scott Jennings doing on CNN in the first place? Because a conservative voice has to be represented in the lion's den? Give me a break. Give me a break. Theater. Theater. And who are the Democrats that they bring on to Fox News? Who are the Republicans that they bring on to Fox News? Even more so. I've been on Fox News twice. Twice I've been on Fox News. Once with Tucker Carlson, another time with Pete Hegseth. Both of them now gone from Fox, and I've never been back on. Coincidence? I don't think so. The theater's bad out there in the streets. Make no mistake about it. The snowflaking of it is, we're not, we say we're revolutionaries, but we're not really willing to die for the most part. Even more so, we're not really willing to see life change on a day-to-day basis in this country. Hence, the same people who hit the streets and put the mask on and whatnot will be the same people who go to the Super Bowl, the biggest corporate event in the world, to cheer on because Bad Bunny's going to wear a dress during the halftime show. You can't have it both ways. You can't have it both ways. Same thing goes for Michele Tafoya. And I come to this tonight because, again, I'm embarrassed. I'm actually embarrassed for the Republican Party, for Minnesota Republicans, for conservatives and Christians all across this state, but all across the country. Up and down the ladder. Up and down the ladder. See, it's interesting to me. This is when there's opposition, controlled opposition. For the longest time, the Minnesota Republican Party, the National Republican Party, the conservative movement, the conservative media, the alternative media on the right wing of American politics has advocated that we're in some moral battle, some spiritual warfare against good and evil, God and the devil, believers and non-believers. And I actually believe that we are. I really believe we are. That's why the first speech I gave, the first convention speech I gave at the Minnesota Congressional District 5 convention for endorsement when I ran for CD5, ran for House in 22. The first thing I said is, are we the party of God? And it is a fundamental divide. See, where I could agree with Colin Kaepernick's diagnosis of the problem, where I could agree with some of the people on the left, like the Bernie Sanders and AOCs, about economic populism or their criticism of corporate greed. We don't agree on the solution. The solution cannot be an infinite expansion of the federal government and let's say entrepreneurial suppression. The loss of our rights, the loss of our individuality, the loss of republicanism, which places a premium on the individual, not only in spiritual life, not only in moral and ethical consideration, but also as a framework for how government and a society is supposed to work. Republicanism. So although I may agree with a Colin Kaepernick on certain things, an AOC on certain things, we cannot have a full or healthy political alliance under any circumstances, because the fundamental differences are just too big. There's too big of a gap on the fundamentals. But I don't think we've sorted that out on the right. And Michele Tafoya is the greatest example. It's only a coincidence that we're here and got the Super Bowl and we're talking about the NFL and the sort of fake and fictitious nature of the NFL as an institution. And my next political opponent here in the Republican Party primary is going to be a lifelong NFL reporter, sideline reporter. And I say it again today, like I said before. You do not have a lifelong career. You do not have a career as a sideline reporter or as a commentator in the NFL unless you say absolutely nothing controversial. Unless you told the line of the very corporate community that has brought us the crisis we're in today. Do you agree we're in a crisis? Do you agree there's a problem in our country, worldwide? What would you say that problem is? Special interests and lobbies? Corruption in D.C.? A pay-to-play globalist agenda meant to bastardize the dignity of human beings in exchange for the rise of technology and the greed or power of money? Well, if all of those things are things that you believe, then Michele Tafoya is a representation of it. Because none of it happens, none of it gets out of control the way that it has in our society writ large unless people like Michele Tafoya and others, not just her, but others, were unwilling to stand up and say, there's something wrong with this. There's something very wrong with this. Hell, Colin Kaepernick gets more credit than Michele Tafoya. At least he was willing to ruffle the feathers. At least he was willing to say something, even though he was completely wrong in his prescription of a solution. At least he was willing to say something. And it's the same critique I have of the right when it comes to these protests. You can disagree fundamentally with these people out in the streets all you want to, but at least they're willing to get out in the streets. At least they care enough, even if their protest is mostly theatrical. They're willing to do it. And what does it say about us? What does it say about us that we're willing to accept people like Michele Tafoya, that we're willing to bend on the principles so often, that we're willing to be outworked, outorganized by people who we fundamentally disagree with? Apropos back to the beginning of this show when I said there's something about American sports and the exceptionalism and the excellence of American sports that we need in our culture writ large. It's got nothing to do with halftime shows. It has nothing to do with trophies. It has nothing to do with accolades or Hall of Fames. It has nothing to do with the awards, the rewards. It has to do with the process. It has to do with the process of becoming great at something. The hard work, the dedication, the grit and toughness, the mastery of skill, strategy, the humility of being human, and the understanding and acknowledgement that at any moment it could all be taken away, but that's what makes it beautiful and glorious to sacrifice so much to achieve one thing in your life. That's what the fuck we need in this country from sports. Not pretty fucking blouses who are an empty vessel who spend 30 fucking years on the sideline not ruffling a single fucking feather. But that's a choice the American people get to make. That's the choice the people of Minnesota get to make. Make your choice, live with your decision. What I can say for myself is, I happen to be one of those people who was willing to challenge professional sports and the entire global corporate community well before I ever cashed a check. And I did think, even then, I had an intuition. I didn't yet know how to fully articulate it because I was living through it. And sometimes the chaos and commotion of things make it difficult to organize your thoughts. That's why I'm sort of sympathetic to Colin Kaepernick, because I understand how the peer pressure and the momentum and all of the mainstream media and the misinformation and brainwashing from growing up in a Marxist education system will have you completely off of completely off base. I understand that. I really do. And we all have to understand that about this country writ large, because I guarantee you, people will continue to wake up across this country, in those inner cities, in the broader metropolitan areas, as long as we hold the principle and move people toward the principle. As soon as we give up, as soon as we give an inch to the principle, we're doomed. We're doomed. We have no hope. But I can disagree with Colin Kaepernick on his theory of a solution and still respect, at least he was willing to say something. At least he was willing to say something. Because the majority of us aren't even willing to say something. We'll just watch them fly those F-16s over the stadium and act like it's like it's a symbol to be proud of and not a symbol of the corruption. It is a symbol of the corruption. Now, that doesn't mean that all police are racist or that police should be called pigs. That's ridiculous. Or even Colin Kaepernick dressing up in the, on the front of the magazine in the Black Panther attires. Like, first of all, dude, you're from Wisconsin, okay? You're not even really like that. I grew up with some revolutionary dudes. I grew up with some guys from the neighborhood that will kill you and that will die for what they believe in. I grew up like that. I really did. I'm not ashamed of it. I'm not shy about it, which is another reason why it's a joke that Michele, pro-choice, anti-Trump Tafoya, is going to go down in the Twin Cities and do anything other than lose in historic fashion. And that's exactly what the Republican Party of Minnesota wants. They like being the Washington Generals. They like that aspect of sports. Not a cutthroat competition that goes down to the wire where you put your strategy and your theory of the game versus the other team and you see who comes out on top and you accept that. And you go back to the drawing board and you regroup and you reorganize and you refine and you go back at it again. And if next time we only lose by 5 or 6 less points, that's better. But at least we held the principle. We didn't shift the principle. We didn't change the principle in pursuit of victory, because then it wouldn't be winning. And that's the difference between politics and sports. I talk about the similarities. The difference between politics and sports is the end result of politics is heavy on the moral and ethical implications. The end result of a basketball game or a football game is nothing more than the score. The score is the whole point. The end result of a football game or a basketball game is the score, and the score is the entire point of the deal, is the entire point of the game. The game of politics is not like that. And that's where sports becoming like politics is a grave danger for this country and for human civilization. There are things we can take from sports and there are things that we can't when it comes to politics. Sure, there are teams. Sure, there are strategies and there are ideas and there is hard work and preparation and there is a game. There will be a game that is measured. They're called elections. We'll see how secure they actually are or how fair they actually are. But you could argue the same thing for professional sports in some pockets and corners of our society. Some people don't think that American professional sports is all the way fair either. Legitimate. Not my line of country. Not my line of country. There are things we can take from sports and correlate them to politics, and there are things that we can't. The number one thing we can is that the end result of politics is heavy in moral and ethical implications. The end result of a sports event is just that. It's a sports event. There will be a winner, there will be a loser, and the game will continue on tomorrow. As soon as somebody wins or loses tomorrow night, both teams, organizations, all the players, all the coaches will go back and let the high wear off of winning or the low wear off of losing, and they get back to the drawing board about the next season, about the off season. And I love that part. As an athlete, as a coach, I love that part. There's going to be the high of the competition. There's going to be that apex moment of the competition itself. And we're going to come right there to the edge of uncertainty. Somebody's going to win and somebody's going to lose. And then right away, we deal with that and we turn around and go, okay, what do we need to do to get better if we're going to continue at all? Some coaches will retire. Some players will retire. Some people will go to different teams. That's all part of the deal. Politics is not like that, and it shouldn't be like that. Politics should be, a political campaign should be educational. First of all, it should be grounded in reality, in the truth. It should have a good formation or organization of thoughts and ideas based on the truth. And then it's going to take those ideas and promote them, disseminate them to a population, maybe national, maybe state, maybe local. And at the end of a political campaign, people should have learned something. A cultural change should have shifted. A cultural change should have occurred. A cultural shift should have occurred in the minds of the people who that campaign touched, who that campaign reached. And then there's going to be the game of the election. And then after the election, people on both sides have to assess what went wrong. But it's totally possible that in a political game, in an election, what went wrong is that the people themselves weren't ready for the truth. Another difference between sports and politics. The end result of sports, the end results of a football game, the Super Bowl, the end results of a basketball game or any other competition has very little to do with what the people thought out there in the audience, what the people thought who were watching. That has very little bearing on the game, on the end result of the game. In politics, it has everything to do with the end result of the game, of the competition. What the people think is the whole goal of politics. Not power, not greed, not the perpetuation of the status quo. No, the entire point is what the people think. And if we can't educate, motivate, inspire American people, the American people, to a higher standard of citizenship and governance, then we lose the game on both sides of the aisle. And you may look at my red hat and say, well, you're MAGA, so it's disqualifying. Okay, you may look at President Trump and say, well, I don't like President Trump, he's racist, so it's disqualifying. That's fine. You still have to ask yourself this single question. Do I demand a higher level of citizenship and a higher standard of governance? And what does that look like? Does that look like if Bad Bunny gets up on stage at the halftime show and address, then the standard of governance and the value of citizenship has elevated? And if you're willing to take those nickels, if you're willing to, as my great-grandfather used to say, don't take any wood nickels. If you're willing to take those wood nickels, you're no better than the half-cocked patriot who's willing to applaud because the F-16s the government took and stole his money from him to pay for fly over his head. It's one and the same. It's one and the same. Understand, if you're willing to accept that Target and some of these other woke corporations throw you the crumbs of allyship while they still run the exact same scam economically, internationally, if you're willing to accept this symbolic support, you're no better than the American on the right who's willing to accept the decline in attendance to the church while claiming a pro-life Christian conservative position, all in exchange to watch Sunday football as long as they fly F-16s over the stadium that were bought and paid for with money the government stole from them. You're the same person. And it's my hope in my campaign, that's where I can transcend the polarity of American political culture. It's my hope that in my political career, I can transcend the polarity of American political culture by delivering that message. You are much more alike than you realize. You may not like the similarities. The similarities aren't happy talk. It's not all hunky dory. The similarities in many ways are an indictment of both sides of the aisle. Our willingness to be steered and herded and just kind of walked around on a leash by our elites. Same on both sides of the aisle. Same thing on both sides of the aisle. I hope you understand. I hope you're not offended. I guess the greatest challenge, people always ask me, well, what's the greatest challenge about being a candidate and being in politics? The greatest challenge is, to tell the truth, you run the risk of offending the very people that you want to vote for you. If you tell a truth that's too raw or real, you often run the risk of offending the very people that you want to vote for you. That's a very real dynamic as a candidate. And that's partly why you see a lot of these political puppets skate by without ever saying anything real. Because a part of us as the American people, we want them with a touch of fake. We want them to come with a touch of fake. Enough of a touch of fake to make us feel comfortable in our own contradiction. That's probably the best way I could put it. We want our politicians to come with just enough of a touch of fake to make us feel comfortable in our own contradictions. And I can't do that for you. I can do a lot of things for you, but that I can't do. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I'm not sorry. I cannot make you feel comfortable in your own contradiction. The more you listen to me, the more I'm on the campaign trail, the more I come into contact with everyday working class American citizens, the more contradiction you will see, the more contradiction you will realize, and the more uncomfortable you will be. And that's what makes a great athlete. Understand what you like about the game is that part. You like when an athlete practices, plays, fails in certain parts of the game, goes back to the drawing board, refines his skill, refines the craft, and comes back better. But it's easy to watch and admire somebody else do it. It's hard to do it yourself. And that's why I know a lot of these athletes have gone woke. I know a lot of these athletes are selling out. That's why I played the clip of Bud Crawford saying, $100 million, my soul is worth more than $100 million. There are some people on the flip side of that coin that say, you could have my soul for $100 million. And that is a real epidemic in our country. But culturally, we need more people. We need more people to not only admire what it takes to become an elite athlete, but to embrace it in their own life. And that's what I want to be an example of. That's what I want to be a role model for. It's even like these podcasts. I go back and I'll listen to them. I got to clip them and try and section them up and title them and whatnot and create your content for online and figure out what needs to go out through an entire hour and a half or 2 hours. And I even critique sentence structure. The way I said that, I don't like the way I said that. I don't like my movement on in that. I don't like how I conveyed that. I don't like how that came across. I don't like the tone of that. Even the tone of my voice. Did I start to yell a little too much? Was it obnoxious? Or did I not give enough energy? These are the things that athletes just kind of do intuitively. We are hyper aware of the fine details and nuances of the things that we spend our time and energy on. Very different from a sideline reporter. Very, very different from a sideline reporter. I'm just being real. I'm just being real, guys. I'm just being real. I'm just being real. And finally, I'll say to close here, Amy Klobuchar, Tina Smith, Angie Craig, Peggy Flanagan, Michele Tafoya, Adam, Nikki Haley would have been a good president, Schwarzy, are all the same person. It has nothing to do with them being women. It's that the special interest and lobby money in this country pulls their strings. The NRSC, the National Republican Senatorial Committee, formerly headed up by Mitch McConnell, now his band of running dogs. That's what they are. They're a band of running dogs. They're there to carry on the legacy and the war chest of Mitch McConnell's political career. And all you have to do is listen. All you have to do is watch closely. The fact that the NRSC would pick a pro-choice, anti-MAGA Republican to run in the belly of the beast, the cultural epicenter of American politics right now, is the same sort of slap in the face as them flying the F-16s over the stadium with money that they stole from you. And it's my hope that the American people can see it, that the Republican Party can see it, that Republicans or conservatives or MAGA patriots and America Firsters, Christians, all across this country can see the dishonesty in that. And as the dishonesty continues, it does have consequences. It's not inconsequential. The dishonesty will have a consequence. The more we prolong, see, there's an example. I wanted to say prolong. I said longer. The more we prolong the refinement of our political discourse to something that is much more intellectual, much more nuanced and detailed, much more balanced and practical. And I don't mean balanced like moderate milquetoast status quo. I mean balanced in that it's balanced in its morals and its ethics. It's balanced by its sacred honor. There's what we want as a country. There's what we want as a civilization, balanced by our morality, ethics, and sacred honor. That's what I mean by balance. Until we have a more balanced political discourse, we will tumble into chaos. We will continue to tumble into chaos. Yeah, me and Colin Kaepernick disagree on the solution. But me and Michele Tafoya disagree on the solution as well. And if I have to hold the line, if I have to plant a flag and hold the line for 1/3 of this broad political spectrum or 1/4 of this broad political spectrum, and that's what I have to represent, then that's what I'm willing to do. And if I have to die, if I have to give my life to defend the morality and ethics and sacred honor of the 1/4 that's right, then call us the just right. Not the far right, not the fringe right, not the radical right, not the alternative right. Call us the just right. Because that's what we are. We're just right. I challenge any liberal mainstream media pundit or commentator to bring me on their show and have a debate about the things I've laid out here tonight. I challenge any mainstream conservative commentator or pundit to bring me on their show to debate about the things that I've said here tonight. They won't. The people who are persona non grata in the mainstream media, these are the people who you probably should be supporting. The people who they don't let parade around on Fox News. The people they don't bring into the lion's den of CNN. There's a reason. There's a reason they don't bring people like me on any of those programs. So one, they don't want to give me any more exposure because they know I'm articulate enough, I'm smart enough to defeat them in a debate. But it would also lend, and they learned this with President Trump, it would also lend to a momentum that more people may actually be exposed to something that's balanced with sacred honor, and it may be appealing to them. They learned that with President Trump. They will never make that mistake again. All of the real populist or nationalist candidates that are coming up through the pipeline will never again get a platform promulgated by the mainstream media out of their own obsession or opposition. That'll never happen again. But even some of these alternative media people are a little pussified, in my opinion. Even some of them are afraid. They're all afraid of me. I make them uncomfortable, and I like that. I like that. I want to make you uncomfortable. I don't want you to be comfortable. If we're in a basketball practice, I coach my young kids. They're like, I've been coaching them up since they were in the 4th, 5th grade. Now they're in the 9th grade. Nothing brings me more joy than seeing a young man grow up and develop and being able to have a hand in his basketball development or in his athletic career, because so much of it correlates to life. And you get a good group of young men like I have, and I've been privileged to coach, and it's special. I can't even describe how fulfilling it is. But I don't want them to be comfortable. I love them. I love them like they're my own kids. And I want success for them like I do my own children. But I don't want them to be comfortable. It's the same as this country. I don't want this country to be comfortable. Convenient and easy is what has caused the crisis. I don't want you to be comfortable. I need you to be uncomfortable. I need you to be uncomfortable. Uncomfortable is the only way we cross this Rubicon of corruption. It's the only way we cross through this Rubicon and we come out the other side a stronger country. As if we're uncomfortable here in the interim while we fix this thing. We have to fix this. And it needs fixing. And there are solutions. I don't like this, problems are really complex. Oh, no, they're not that complex. They're not that complex. Stop supporting DC swamp selected politicians. And all you have to do is follow the money, like with the NRSC, Mitch McConnell's band of running dogs. Stop supporting these type of politicians. Stop letting these corporations give you a theater intended to distract you from the real problem. Stop letting the NFL fly F-16s over the stadium as some symbolic support of the United States military. Well, the whole spectacle is intended to keep you distracted from the fact that $2 trillion goes missing from the Pentagon, but we're going to focus all our energy on the fraud from the Somalis in Minnesota. No, we need to prosecute the Somalis who were involved in the fraud and all of the government folks who were complicit or incompetent. But we also need to start prosecuting some of these people who are losing money from the Department of Defense, because certainly $2 trillion is exponentially greater than $20 billion. Solving some of these problems are easy. Solving some of these problems are much easier than we want to admit. It's been another episode of Please Call Me Crazy, brought to you by Free People Radio, powered by our favorite sponsor, TireGet.com. That's TireGet.com. Very easy to buy tires from TireGet.com. You go, you put in your zip code, you purchase your tires, you put in promo code FPR, Free People Radio. You get 3% off of your final purchase. And the tires are distributed from our wholesalers to your local distribution points. And all you have to do is drive your car up and get your tires changed out and be on your way. So we've made it very easy on TireGet.com. Everybody needs tires. You want tires, you need tires, buy them from us. Help us fund the movement. Help support the movement. We believe in the freedom of movement. And I guarantee that's exactly what this establishment wants to take from you now. Super Bowl, entertainers, entertainment, sports, religion, politics, all questions that are up on the bar for us as a country. We can answer those questions, but it's going to take leadership. We have a crisis of leadership. Right now, we have a crisis of leadership in the NFL. There's no way they should let a man get up before the entire world in a dress. And just to be clear, China banned this kind of thing. You know, we are, again, the distraction really is about how our elites are screwing us, but the dangerous distraction is that our enemies are still, are still making plans. Our enemies aren't gonna pause what their agenda is or what their goal or strategy is because we can't get our act together. In fact, there's a great book by a young man named Dan Wong, and you can go watch his interview as well with the New York Times. And Dan Wong is a researcher, and he talks about the difference between the Chinese empire and the American empire. And essentially, he says that China's entire goal is to wait for the Western societies to fail. China's strategy is to wait for the West to collapse. That's why they banned the representation of transgenderism in their media. It's a disanchor from reality. Hey, if you want to dress up like a woman on the weekends, you want to do the Don Lemon thing, that's your business. It has nothing to do with me. It's not my business. It really isn't. But there used to be a standard of what we put on television because we knew children were watching, and what children were exposed to used to be something we thought about in this country. Now we've blurred that line, and I don't think it's by accident, and I don't think it's remotely appropriate. And I think any sane individual could agree we don't need to be parading grown men out there on stage to express their transgender or gender fluidity during the halftime show. It's unnecessary. There are a lot better musicians. There are a lot better entertainers. There are a lot better singers. There are a lot better rappers. There are a lot better entertainment. There's a lot better entertainment, more skillful, masterful entertainment, and that's part of the spectacle too. Is that mastery itself? The last video I showed you was and I think we need more of this. Better teachers, more mastery. Better teachers, more mastery. Of the man who was showing the young man how to play the cello. And you could see the enthusiasm in teaching, but you could also see his fundamental understanding of the music and of the method of playing the cello and how it translated in real time to the young man being able to play it with more passion. You could see his passion change. He taught the young man through the cello about passion and communication. And you could visibly see the young man become a better player in real time. That's why I love coaching. I could take a young kid and I could teach him very basic things about, the structure, the mechanics of his shot. And you can literally see in real time the improvement. That is helping people. It doesn't help people to break from reality. It doesn't help people to march an entertainer up there who has trouble really entertaining in a genuinely novel and talented way, and trying to write that off as skill. It's not skill. It's a distraction. It's theater. And Lady Gaga was kind of the onset of this in recent memory, because Lady Gaga had that real Broadway theatrical persona and presentation. And Lady Gaga's bad she's a musician. She's a real musician. So, you take all of the LGBTQ stuff from Lady Gaga and she's as much a part of this woke movement as anybody, really. And even the gender fluidity, but I still piece out the mastery and the skill. But at least she has mastery and skill. And we could say, damn, when you hear Lady Gaga play the piano, it's undeniable. It's damn. She can play that piano. She can sing. That's a singer. She understands music. Still don't agree with her politics. And to be honest, it's a damn shame. And this says something about us culturally, too. I'll end with this. It's a damn shame that people feel compelled to do all of this extra shit instead of it just be about the art and the music. And I say that as a olive branch to a lot of these entertainers who I know have been sucked in to this propaganda because they don't think there's any other way for them to get their music out to the world or their art out to the world. They, like Bud Crawford said, $100 million, you can't have my soul. The other guy said, for $100 million, you could have my soul. Well, some people's price is even lower than that. In fact, we have we have an epidemic of selling out so bad in this country and around the world. It's not just people who are selling out for an offer. We have a crisis and an epidemic of people who are preparing their resume on the off chance they get an offer to sell out. They haven't even been made the offer. They just live in a sellout mentality. And I have sympathy for you, but I still spit at your feet for your cowardice. Does that make sense? I have sympathy for these people. I understand the motivating factors. But I still have such a disdain for your cowardice that I spit at your feet. You would sell your soul for $100 million? Spit at your feet. You disgust me. A lot of people have a much cheaper price than that. The Michele Tafoyas have a cheaper price than that. The other running dogs of the NRSC and Mitch McConnell's band of corrupt traitors have a much lower price than that. And some of you out there in the audience, you have to look in the mirror. Look in the mirror and really ask yourself, what is your price? What is your price? The price of freedom is death. And I'm not asking you to die for your freedom, but I am telling you, you have to be willing to die. You have to be willing to die to maintain your freedom. Some of us aren't willing to die for our freedom. Some of us aren't even willing to be uncomfortable for our freedom. And that's why we're losing it. Thank you for your viewership and listenership today and in the future. Next week, Monday, Panamanian Ricky on Instagram. Got an interview with him, and he and I discussed some of the perils of the Black community, Black America, and how he sees things unfolding in the country right now. A couple of great viral clips from him that have gone wide recently. Some of them on my own Facebook. I look up on my Facebook, I posted a video of him talking, sitting in his car talking. He's at 50,000 likes. He asked a simple question. He says, when did immigration become the most important thing for Black people? When did immigration become the most important? When did protecting illegal immigrants become the most important thing in our country? Very reasonable question, my friend. Very reasonable question. So we'll have him on Monday night. A week from Sunday, we will be launching 7 to 9 a.m. Central drive time call-in live stream on Rumble. Free People Radio Rumble channel. So it's going to be there'll be another Rumble channel as well as another YouTube channel, but we will be streaming live from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central, drive time hour, call-in show. So we're going to be able to interact with a lot of you all. Make sure that you stay tuned, go subscribe, keep checking over the next week for those channels to pop up, and you'll have your designation for the new daily live stream, call-in, drive time show. Myself, Professor Penn, entitled The White House. So that's it for me. Thank you again. Enjoy the weekend. Enjoy the Super Bowl. If you're traveling, safe travels. Don't take any wooden nickels. Don't take any wooden nickels. We'll see you again next time. Thank you. Godspeed. Everything's up on the bar. We're all in. We get to decide. Do you want to live on your knees, or do you want to die on your feet fighting? That's the decision you get to make now.